Howdy, howdy. It's Trisha Lee. I'm here in Alberta, Canada. Welcome to the Disruptive Technology Hangout. So I'm here with my partner, Larry Lever. Larry is the VP of Development for King Sunshine Solar Systems and the CEO of TK Environmental. And we've been working together for 5 years or so. And previous to that, Larry was owner in a company that used a patented process that he developed to recycle pipeline pigs, and by adhering new plastic material to old plastic material and being able to recycle those. And since then, we are continuing with new companies on the path of sustainability and environmentalism. Our companies are involved in solar and recycling, so that's been a very disruptive technology for our planet. And so since that's occurring, we came up with this idea for these disruptive technology hangouts. So we've been talking about all kinds of subjects, all different types of disruptive technology. Lots of stuff way outside of our focus or expertise. Just getting a conversation going and hoping to arouse new ideas for innovation and adaptation to the direction that our planet is going as far as sustainability and changes in our just the way that we do things and making things better and brighter for the future. So tonight we're going to be talking about a topic that Larry's been researching for a bit of a top secret project that we recently started on. And so Larry, do you want to introduce our topic for any viewers out there?
Sure. I want to talk about shredders, personal shredders that I think are going to disrupt the recycling industry. Essentially, I've got this idea where instead of people, well, I'd like to talk a little bit first about recycling and how a lot of recycling works. A lot of people might not know this, but generally, recycling gets collected in most places and then it gets shipped overseas for processing. And I think what our government has got in mind to reduce greenhouse gases, one of the best ways to do that would be to be able to have industrial equipment in your home, which would be no different than something like a juicer, and where you could take your plastics and feed them into a shredder or pulverizer, which is something that we're working on right now. And you'd be able to turn your recycling into the end user product before it even leaves your home. So I kind of got this idea in Indiegogo. I think it was a Kickstarter campaign actually that I saw a few years ago about this young guy. He's about 14 years old. Came up with this idea for taking plastic household waste and turning it into 3D printer spool material. So a 3D printer works with using spools of plastic, almost like plastic twine, which is fed into the 3D printer to make things. So this kid figured out a way to make the actual twine at home using basically recycling that was in the kitchen, like margarine containers, ice cream containers, all these plasticky kind of things. So it kind of got me thinking with this project that we're working on right now. One of the ingredients of the project we're working on right now is plastic in a powder form. And it took me a long time to find any information on the internet about how to turn plastic into powder. There's a lot of information on how to turn plastics into plastic flake or regrind, which is a very common material in the plastic industry. However, if you can get it into a powder form, it has an incredible amount of value. And so that's kind of what I started thinking of was how can I take plastic um, garbage or recycling from the kitchen and turn it into the end user product. The end user, generally for any kind of plastic, whether it's recycled or virgin plastic, is injection molders, blow molders, rotational molders, all these different molders of plastic. So when you buy a product that's in, say, a margarine container, that product was probably made through an injection mold. Um, your pop bottles are made through a process called blow molding. So you can find all these different types of molding processes online. But one unique thing about these different types of molding is they're all using the same raw material. Some formulations are a little bit different. I know for rotational molding, they prefer using something like a powder rather than the um, traditional bead form, which is usually how plastic comes. When I worked as an injection molding technician, we used plastic in bead form. And of course, you have your different types of plastic in recycling. You've got plastic number one all the way up to number seven, and each one is in its own category and represents a certain type of plastic. Number one or plastics are PETE. I think we talked about this in a previous hangout. Number two plastic, it's HDPE or high density polyethylene. And number three is PVC, which we're all familiar with PVC pipe. And number four is LDPE, which is a low density polyethylene. Number five is a polypropylene. Number six is a polystyrene. And number seven is various. There's a whole bunch of different types there. So, all these different plastics, if you can turn these plastics into the end user, being the fabricator, not the person that buys the molded product, but the end user being the molder, the people that are making products, if you can turn it into a powder form again, it goes from recycling that has zero value to recycling that can be quite valuable, especially if it's in powder form. Just because it's easier to work with. To make plastic pellets, they like to work from a powder form. However, they'll also work with uh, flakes to make extruded pellets for plastic. So what I'm kind of thinking is that by taking all this infrastructure and putting it into the home, uh, I investigated the different ways of making these products, these plastic products, and they were all very, uh, very similar processes for taking plastic and making something that could be reused or remolded. So, yeah, here we are. We've got another idea, which could be very similar to something like a juicer. If anybody owns a juicer, the most common juicers are you put your vegetables or fruits into this machine that spins really fast. Some of them spin really slow, but basically they're sucking the juice out of the fruits and turning it into fiber powder and juice, which some people use both. Some people just use the juice from the juicer. So it'd be a similar type of machine like that, maybe a little bit bigger, and you might have to hook your vacuum cleaner up to it as well to collect the powder. which I think most people have vacuum cleaners in their homes. People have I remember when I lived in an apartment, I had a little handheld vacuum cleaner that could be plugged in and worked as good as your standard vacuum cleaner, like a household vacuum cleaner. Anyways, all these components that they use in industrial places like overseas, where they take the plastic scrap that we basically give them, and they turn it into the same raw materials that are used by the plastic molders. So I'm thinking we can do this in our own homes. So you can take any kind of plastic, and you got to remember too that the plastic you get from the store that has your food in it, sometimes the food can be a little contaminated, or the plastic can absorb some enzymes and stuff from the food it contains in, but that's becoming more of a rare thing because they're adjusting the type of plastic so that that doesn't happen. I remember it was a problem years ago, and I think it was with number four plastic having a tendency to absorb enzymes from the food. Wouldn't contaminate the food, but it would contaminate the plastic. So you'd end up with all this number four plastic that you
Well, that actually went both ways because, like, for a while there was BPA in a lot of the bottles, and they had a big thing where they had to like recall some baby bottles and stuff like that. So sometimes the plastic can contaminate the food, and vice versa.
Yeah. So, but the bottom line here is being able to take um, plastic and stuff like your plastic water bottles, um, any kind of yeah, like that one you've got there, can actually be recycled in your home and turned into a powder again. And yeah, I think I have an easy process on how it can be done. Can work with any kind of plastic, and you'd be able to produce a product that you could actually sell at the value, possibly a higher value than the container itself is worth. When I went online to find out how much all these, there must be something horsey in here. I'm having an allergy thing. Uh, when you go online and look at the molders products that are made with uh, the powder form, the powder that they're buying is some of it is really really expensive. I was actually blown away when I saw how pricey this powder was. Oh, I gotta move out of here. Sorry. Excuse me. Got to go. Uh, I I just lost my train of thought. Sorry. Um, yeah, basically the plastics that you have in your kitchen have.
Larry, just turn off your microphone and your camera and take a break.
Okay, thanks.
Go blow your nose. I'll take over for a sec. Just turn off the camera and mic.
What is he gonna do with the mic off?
He's just gonna blow his nose. Yeah, Larry's is having an allergic reaction. He's there. I think my jacket from the horses is beside him. Anyway, so yeah. So what I'm seeing, the big picture of this for us is if we can get this little like shredder machine that you can make this powdered plastic out of, it will be kind of similar to when the deposit, like on pop cans and bottles, most places in the world have a deposit on these items, and you take it to a depot and they process it and take it to the recycler, but they give you, you know, your nickel or your dime for the bottle or the can. So with the idea of this is if you had your shredder and you could put your household plastic into it, and so for us, we have all these customers that have this plastic and they collect it and give it to us. So we could take the plastic ourselves and shred it up, and then be able to sell the powder. And apparently it's got a lot of value, this powder material, because it's like virgin material. And if you can process it in a way that gives it the same properties, it may not be a virgin material of the plastic that it started with, but it could be for a lower plastic and then, or something like that. And then, so you would be able to collect that and get a money return. With our business, we're thinking our customers that already collect this, if we gave them each one of these shredders, they could process the plastic right there on their counter, and then just give it to us, where at which time we could weigh it and then add a credit to their account. And then at the end of the year, we actually may end up owing them money for this plastic material that we're able to sell, rather than them having to be paying us to pick up their stuff. So we think initially, if we can create these little shredders, and Larry will be back soon to tell you more about how they'll work. If we could create a whole, we would initially create these and give them to our customers. And so other people in the community would find out that, oh, if we can get money for this plastic, they would have to take it to one of our customers or become a customer. And they would have to work out some kind of deal with our customer to be able to shred their material and be able to bring it in and get the money for it somehow. But so that would be like a really great incentive for people to say, well, I'm just going to sign up with their service, and they can manage this plastic for me, and I can get one of these machines. And a lot of them may not even put out their cardboard and paper and stuff. They may just want to participate with us just for the virtue of being able to cash in on this plastic material. So Larry, can you tell us a little bit more about these little individual shredders that you have in mind?
I was saying before my nose started to bother me, the plastics that you have in your home are generally very valuable plastics, because they have not ever been exposed to ultraviolet radiation, which really degrades plastic. So when you buy food containers, or when you buy a container from the store containing food, it's basically coming out of the plant, the manufacturing plant, where they actually mold the container. They fill it up at a processors with margarine, yogurt, whatever is going in it, and then it gets shipped to the store. So it's in the store's refrigerator or whatever. You take it home in your vehicle with your shop groceries. You go home, you put it in the fridge. This stuff is not getting any kind of usage whatsoever. So it should actually be still a pretty high quality plastic, because it's never been exposed to anything that will really biodegrade it or cause it to lose its physical properties. So you could end up with a pretty high quality end product for reuse after going through a recycling process of turning it into powder.
So I just want to give a little teaser because I know you don't really want to talk about it, but we have this top secret project that we've been working on that is why we've been researching these shredders. And just to let you know, the first thing that we're going to be doing with what we're creating is building the horse wagon that we're going to be using to pick up recycling. If you follow us at all, you know that we did a Kickstarter, or not a Kickstarter, we tried a Kickstarter campaign that failed to launch, and then we did an Indiegogo campaign which failed to raise the money to replace our diesel recycle truck with horse and wagon to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Our Indiegogo for that, we failed to raise the money, but however, we have an idea of how to build the custom wagons that we need, and it's all has to do with our top secret project. So you want to keep following us if you want to find out more about that, as I guess once we get patents and stuff, we'll be able to release details. In the meantime, if you really, really wanted to know, you'd have to get in touch with one of us, and we could potentially have you sign an NDA and give you the information about it. But in the meantime, What other stuff have you learned about shredders, Larry? About like what kind of materials and what kind of new things that developments that they had? Because like I think initially shredders were initially come up with just for paper, like for confidential documents. Is that correct? And then they've kind of evolved to shredding all kinds of material. Or actually, probably before that, they shredded other stuff. I don't know. You tell us. You're muted. He's not listening, but
Sorry.
yeah, I don't know what the history of shredding stuff is, but maybe initially it was wood. They would shred wood for stuff. I don't know, but it's the technology's come a long way, and they're shredding all kinds of stuff all around the world,
Yeah,
right?
that's true. That's true. Uh, uh, Part of the whole idea is that um, because we're entering this era of sustainability, we're going to see a lot of uh, things happen like this. You're asking about the history of shredders. Shredders used to be really, really big, really loud, and require a lot of electricity. And now I think they've done more research into it and found a way to make them quieter and less bulky. And the ones I was looking at actually spin at a slower RPM, so they don't require as much power to make them work. I can remember when I was injection molding, we used to make a lot of regrind stuff where we'd have off parts that weren't in great shape. They were a low quality part, so we would take the product and then put it in this grinder machine. And this grinder machine sounded like a plane taking off every time you started it. It was so loud, and it would just basically pulverize the plastic when you put it into it. And so that technology has changed quite a bit. There's a place in California I noticed that is making a grinder that's not as loud, does the same job, and spins a little slower. So it's quieter and it doesn't require as much power. So I think the idea I've got is to take it one step further, and that's kind of what I'm thinking. They're also another big deal with turning plastics into regrind on location. There's trucks now that will travel to plants that have an overstock on plastics that are just taking up too much room, and so they would take these products and turn them back into regrind on site with a truck with a shredder actually built into the truck. So I used to work for a company that destroyed documents, and they had a shredder for paper on the vehicle as well. So you'd show up and you'd be able to put all this paper into a shredder, shred it in the truck, and it would go back into the storage bay in the behind of in the back of the truck. So you'd shred at the front, and it would shred the paper and put it into the back of the truck. So at the end of the day, you'd take your truck, which would be full of shredded paper, and you'd unload it somewhere. I think this is the kind of thing we might be seeing a lot more of, simply because the value of the plastic in general is a lot higher once it's processed. So we might see plastic recycling MRFs and transfer stations actually start recycling plastic on location, so they can ship it out in powder or granulated form, which would save on shipping. But my view on this whole thing is to reduce greenhouse gases. And in order to reduce greenhouse gases, if you can imagine taking all the plastic things that you buy, the plastic junk you've got in your home, identifying it, which is easily done through there's testing ways of identifying different types of plastic. You could categorize all your plastic junk in your home, grind it up in this little small grinding processing machine, bag it, and then ship it to the molders yourself in by FedEx, or put it on Amazon or something, and actually be able to sell stuff from your home. So it's that would be the ultimate for reducing greenhouse gases, because the material leaves the place where it's at. It leaves in the shape of not recycling, but actually in finished material.
Yeah, and if you don't all know out there, we are like way too busy to make this happen. We're going to have to allocate and find some people to make it, implement this plan and rearrange our schedules and do some different stuff to create it. However, we we'll need even more people to be able to create it in other places and be able to accomplish this all around the world. So that could mean a big opportunity for many people out there to start collecting this plastic and just duplicating the process that we're going to be using. Pretty much it should work anywhere in the globe, right, Larry? And we should be able to lend a helping hand to people all around the world as far as where they can cash in their material. And once we are able to start doing this, definitely we'll want to help it to spread around to other communities. You're muted.
You got people on beachfronts that get plastics floating up on their beaches every day, and if they could turn those into product that they could sell, you know, it's like a win-win situation. You clean up the beach, identify the product, and sell it, and make money off of it.
And you win-win. You said win-win, and that kind of reminded me of something that you had mentioned about the potential of having these machines being wind-powered, because the wind creates the way it creates electricity is through torque or something like that, and so it's can be applied in slow-moving situations, which is the type of movement created by wind power. Didn't you say something about the shredders being wind powered?
Well, that is definitely a possibility. You have where you have windy areas, you can use wind power instead of, but you can use renewable energy to do anything today. The thing is, there I got that idea from a sawmill that I saw online on YouTube that was being operated by wind. So if you can operate a sawmill off wind power, yeah, you could operate a shredding facility off wind power too.
So how else did you see? What else did you learn about shredders and what different kinds of materials that they're shredding? Like traditionally, these machines were not built to shred plastic, were they?
Well, all the machines. Well, it was kind of. It's a very new industry. Uh, so the people that used to shred plastic or regrind it, they called it, way back when, were actually in the molders. They would make a product and then shred the. Sometimes when you're injection molding or making products, there's a flaw with the part that comes out of the machine. So rather than discard them, they thought, well, let's put them into a machine that'll change it back into a material that we could use. So when you do that at a fabrication shop where they're actually making plastic things, uh, they actually only, I think it was 30% regrind that we would add to a virgin part. So you put in 30% of a ground up part and add it to 70% of a virgin plastic. It's kind of like mixing up a Kool-Aid, something to that effect, where you'd have to have a certain percentage in order for the part to come out with good physical properties. So every time, people should know that every time you do regrind a product and make another product, there's only a few types of plastic where that could actually be done without losing a lot of your physical properties. And one of these plastics is the number twos and the number fours, the polyethylene. You can actually make polyethylene parts over and over and over, kind of like what they do with recycling aluminum. You can recycle aluminum indefinitely. So it holds a lot of promise. And believe it or not, if once people start doing this, this is going to disrupt the plastic industry simply because they're not going to have to manufacture as much material, which is also going to lower greenhouse gases. Uh, and ideally it's nice to always reuse packaging. We thought about that in the recycling business as well, to reuse a lot of these packages. It doesn't make much financial sense because you have to package up all the containers and send them back to the manufacturer. So, and then they'd have to be cleaned and sterilized and all that. It's kind of expensive. So, it wasn't really an opportunity to take plastics and reuse them. However, to take them and regrind them into a moldable product or a usable product that could be used by a molder just makes more sense. And it leaves the end user in control of things too.
Yeah, that's a great benefit. And I think definitely here where we live in Alberta, you see a lot more people that are willing to recycle their pop cans and their drink containers as compared to anything else. People will throw away newspapers and plastics and stuff like that and still keep their pop bottles and drink containers because the municipality in its infinite wisdom has put value on those items. So as soon as you see that, oh, I can get 5 cents for this, if I save up enough of these, I can do whatever and have a few dollars in my pocket. And so definitely once there's a value attached to the materials, it makes it a lot easier to get people motivated to just get in the habit of recycling and being conscientious of where this material goes and the value of it, and the fact that it's like that saying that one person's junk is another man's treasure. It's like garbage could potentially be treasure in this situation, and what you're talking about, when we're able to implement it, it's definitely going to just make a really huge wave and push for people to be able to be more conscientious about the plastics and their value, and just being able to recycle them.
Well, that's the thing, yeah. And I've always known in the back of my mind ever since I came up with my first patent for recycling polyurethane, or the patent was a process of repairing thermoset or thermoplastics. Ever since that, even way back then when I came up with the idea, I thought, well, this stuff has got value. You looked at the part and you said this part had to be manufactured by somebody. There's nothing wrong with it. There's, to the naked eye, you could not see a problem with the part. So I always knew in the back of my mind that this stuff was going to become more and more valuable with the less and less the less dependence we had on fossil fuels. Because keep in mind, plastic is coming from oil and gas products. So it's a non-renewable resource. You believe it or not. There's some plastics being made today that are made from organics. Like the PLA plastic is a number 7 plastic. There's a lot of bottled water companies that are starting to use PLA. However, something doesn't add up because they're advertising on the bottle that it's a PLA product. However, when you flip the bottom, flip it over and look at the recycling logo, the recycling logo is showing a number 1, whereas PLA would be categorized as a number 7. So I think it's a little bit of malarkey going on there, that they're advertising that this is a product made out of renewable sources. It's made out of renewables, or if it's made out of materials that are organic, it would have a number 7 on it. And that's something for people to keep in mind. Those plastics that are being manufactured are not really plastics. They look and appear to be plastic. However, they're organic, so they could actually biodegrade. They're based on plants, which, to be honest with you, is the plastic. That's the future of the plastic industry, especially if we stop relying on oil and gas. All the plastics that, your ecopoxy instead of fiberglass resin, your PLAs instead of number 1 plastics, are all going to become much more popular. And so when it comes to that, though, that becomes a whole different. I can't really see into the future on that, because now you're manufacturing something that looks like plastic that can be composted and not harm the environment, because it's not based on a fossil fuel product. So how they recycle the PLAs, I'm not sure. I don't think they are recycled. I think they're actually biodegraded in a landfill. You're muted.
Which is probably a good thing, I suppose. Probably better using compostable materials and plastics in the first place. However,
yeah, we wouldn't have a problem in the Pacific Ocean, would we?
Not as big of a problem, that's for sure.
There'd be a lot of cornstarch in the ocean.
Yeah, I don't know. There may be an impact from that you wouldn't foresee as well. I don't know, like when you add cornstarch to gravy to make it thicker, so maybe you would by having all the cornstarch, it would dissolve, but would it make the water change the consistency of the water? That could cause a problem in a whole another area. I don't know. I think a lot of it is just the amount. So when people change their habits, and so there's just less of that waste going.
Well, and it makes you think that when they start using more plastics that are biodegradable, like actually biodegradable plastics, if it does end up in the ocean, if it's a natural based product, I highly doubt that it's going to harm the wildlife or the fish life or whatever you want to call it that's already in the ocean, because it's based on food. So it's not something that animals will eat and not be able to digest. If there's a shark that comes along and eats one of these bottles, I don't know. It's hard to say what would happen as it goes through the shark's digestive system. I think might have lost you there on the Hangout.
Yeah, I didn't. I just heard the last part that the sharks are eating the plastic. Are they?
Well, I was just thinking if there were all these biodegradable plastics based on organics were being used instead of petroleum-based products, and they were in the ocean, who knows what would happen if the animals ate them. I don't think it would, if it was organic, you'd probably be able to digest it. I'm not sure if you can eat a PLA piece of plastic and have it go through your body. That's an interesting question. However, getting back to the topic of shredding the stuff, I think with it might biodegrade faster if those types of plastics were shredded as well. As long as they're not plastics that are or containers that are based on anything containing plastic, because I do know there are biodegradable products that they're biodegradable, but they're based on fossil fuel products. They're based on oil products. You don't want to put that stuff in a landfill. It'll biodegrade, but what it's going to leave something behind that the earth won't be able to consume. The earth won't be able to reclaim it for a long time because why? It's an oil-based product. And we all know what happens when you put oil on the ground or on the grass. For starters, it's illegal because nothing will grow there anymore. So that's also something we got to keep in mind. But I think getting back to this whole thing of shredding the plastic in the home so it can be shipped off to a molder to be made into a new product or a different product based on what the molder wants to make. Because they make things and they change them as they go, right? For a while they'll be making one type of part or container, and then they'll come up with a change. For example, a lot of the recycling we used to see had number 4s for the entire container. And I can remember not more than 10 years ago, like less than 10 years ago, a lot of yogurt came out in number 4 plastic containers, and that doesn't happen anymore. They stopped using number 4s. A lot of them went to number 2s, but now I've noticed number 5s are being used for stuff like yogurt. Yogurt and those milk products seem to be really hard on plastics in general. It's something to do with the enzymes in the actual milk. Like it's good for our bodies, but it's not good for plastics. It contains something that will dissolve the plastics or penetrate the molecular structure.
Yeah, that makes sense because when the big BPA scandal was, when they had to recall, that was all like baby bottles. So it wasn't, I don't think it was so much an issue with the water bottle BPA, but it was the baby bottles where they were putting the formula, which would have the same milk proteins as yogurt and stuff. So, and they use cartons for milk that they don't typically use plastic for milk or, well, I guess they do sometimes now, but it must be a different type that can handle it.
Yeah, the polypropylene, not polyethylene is used for a lot of food storage. But in general, I think they're improving the molecular structure of plastics every day, so they come up with better physical properties depending on what they're using it for. I do know, however, polypropylene, the number 5 plastic, is probably the toughest on the market. It is quite easily recyclable, and it can handle boiling water. Like you can sterilize products that are made from number 5 plastics. And that brings in another question. Do you really want to shred and pulverize those things because they're so easily reused? We could all use plastic cutlery if it was number 5 plastic, and instead of throwing it out, you just throw it into an autoclave or something to sterilize it, and you just keep reusing it forever. That plastic will last a long time. Doesn't have to be recycled.
So is there anything that you notice, like, I think you were telling me that there's the shredders, like they work differently than like you said, they're quieter and stuff like that, but what do they do to like make it quieter, and how have they been able to make all the improvements to the technology?
Well, I think when they started shredding plastic, they were basing it on the way that you would process aggregates. Like for cement companies and concrete companies have always forever had a need to crush gravel to a certain size in order to process cement. So I'm pretty sure that's where it got started. Uh, However, it required a lot of energy to do that sort of stuff. And when you just transfer a technology, concrete's way tougher than any kind of plastic on the market. It's a pretty tough material. It's made out of rock. So when it comes to plastic, you're dealing with something a little different. So a lot of companies looked at how these big noisy machines were working and thought, does it have to be this noisy? Does it have to be this loud? A lot of heat can be generated when recycling plastic. In fact, I was on the phone today with a concrete manufacturer, and we were discussing this process of manufacturing concrete and aggregate using crushers. So they actually crush things in most situations in that industry. So when they're crushing stuff, they're actually pulverizing it, and they use stuff like chains to pulverize it. Chains won't work on plastic. They'll bounce right off, many of the plastics. So what happened was, I guess some guys just thought, we can do this better. If we slow it down, it would keep the plastic cooler, so the plastic doesn't melt. Aggregates don't melt. However, plastics will melt when you create a lot of friction with them, and then you run into really big problems when stuff starts melting inside of equipment. So by slowing down the RPM of cutting blades, they ran into less heat problems. It wasn't heating up as much. So that is being done by a California company. I watched their YouTube videos of how fast the cutter spins, and it's about 100 RPM compared to 1600 RPM, which was your standard regrind machine. So those machines are still out there. However, they consume a lot of electricity, and once you start talking about that in a sustainable era that we're entering, guess what? You're not going to be in business long. If your equipment is requiring a lot of energy, you better find a new way of making your equipment work, because it's going to be obsolete, because the world's going to want equipment that does not consume a lot of produce a lot of greenhouse gases.
Yeah, definitely. So we're getting kind of close to the top of the hour, and I'm really, really excited about our other kind of motive for having these hangouts. But did you have anything else pertinent that you wanted to share about the shredders and just as far as how it's disruptive technology, or how it's going to disrupt the marketplace? Because shredding materials is, especially shredding plastic, is like kind of a brand new thing. But I think, even shredding, like wood and stuff, which they've been doing for probably 100 years. However, they're probably doing it in a lot different way than they are now. So do you have any other comments about shredders or the disruptive tech, where you see it's going?
Yeah, I see paper shredders being still good for all fiber materials. And they've got machines that shred paper, and they got machines. The same machine will shred tin and wood. How it does tin is kind of mind-boggling to me, but I've seen some shredders that will shred everything from paper up to cars. They can actually shred an entire car. So those types of shredders are really valuable because they can also do plastic. The thing is, they don't produce a powder, and I think the company.
Those are also the high intensity energy absorbing devices as well, right? Like if
Well,
you're
yeah,
driving a
when you
car,
start,
you're gonna be sucking a lot of juice to do that.
you better believe it. The motors on those are pretty incredible. So it's not it's sure is cool to watch, but so were alcohol burning dragsters. Those were cool to watch too, and Formula One racing. But they all create a lot of greenhouse gases, and that's no longer cool to do that. So, anyways, regarding the plastic, I think changing with paper products, you don't want to change them into powder. You want to keep the fiber content high because this is something that comes from wood. Your cardboard, your paper, your magazines, that's all coming from trees. And so you want to keep the fiber content nice and high on that. So shredding them into big pieces is smarter than trying to turn them into a powder. Plastics start as a powder. That's how they start off. So you want to turn the plastics back into a powder rather than shred them. And that's where you start creating a lot more value, is when they're in a powder form. They have more value because you can do more with them. So yeah, that pretty much covers the whole thing. I was going to mention something about the costs. The places that do have the big pulverizers, they usually refer to them as pulverizers or hammer mills that turn things from plastic products into powders. Not only do they consume a lot of energy, they consume a huge amount of floor space because they're very big for the job that they do. So I think miniaturizing these things so that people can have them in their home is going to disrupt that entire industry, which is still kind of in its infancy, but they have been regrinding plastic for a long time. Most plastic molders will have a regrinding machine on site for processing their bad seconds and rejects. However, for recycling, yeah, it's kind of a new game still, and I really think that the most practical way of doing it is to do it in the home safely, low RPM, low power consumption, and people can make their money off their plastics. I think that's really where the future is going to be at for this technology. And yeah, it's gonna all those big injection molders that they'll still use their machines, but I think the large regrinding or pulverizing hammer mill type of stuff is gonna disappear for recycling. People aren't going to have to ship their plastic overseas. Like the baling of plastics is going to stop because there won't be a need to bale the plastic. You don't have to bale it anymore or send it off. So that's going to disrupt the actual recycling industry as well, in a way that where you have recycle depots that are usually transfer stations. I don't think they're going to be very busy in the future when this new technology starts to come online on the market.
Definitely. So yeah, this is a topic we'll be touching on plenty in the future from different angles, and there'll be other things that come up, and we'll be letting you know about the progress of our top secret project that we're working on. And to learn more about our companies, you can visit Larry's website at kingsss.ca, and you can learn about our solar and recycle company. And I just want to talk about like why we have this hangout. Part of it is for us to just kind of get our ideas on the table and aired out and sorted through. And then after, we can have a business meeting and kind of see where we're progressing with the different projects we're involved in. So part of that is just keeping ourselves organized and keeping ourselves ready to adapt to changes going on in the marketplace as business owners. Another part of it is to help you and the viewer who's watching by providing you with ideas and potential opportunities that may be out there for, in regards to new technology, new products, new services, or just improving on the products and services that already exist. So we wanted to do this Hangout to inspire you. Part of it is to express my uniqueness as an environmentalist, because I am very much an anomaly as far as environmentalism is concerned, because I do not buy into climate change. I know I said it on the Hangout, and I've said it before, and I'm sure I'll say it again, but greenhouse gases to me is just stupid. To even say that or think about it is stupid, because let's call it what it really is. It's not greenhouse gases, people. Our problem is not GHG. Our problem is pollution. And this PC culture that we live in wants to like polish everything over. And, you know, when the agents of war go out and they kill innocent civilians, they call it collateral damage. It's just a big whitewashing of the media and this like brainwash culture that is often forced down our throats, trying to preach a bunch of stuff that is not proven, that's not scientific. Like they can't even predict the weather right for a week-long forecast, let alone that. And so I'm supposed to subscribe to this climate science and argue about it with people, when the reality is that the problem is not the climate, the problem is pollution. And a big part of the solution to that is recycling, is innovation, is coming up with better ways of solving problems, basically. And so, and the final reason that that me and Larry have decided to present these disruptive technology hangouts is in order to create a bridge to this amazing disruptive technology that we discovered called internet marketing. So with internet marketing, we've learned a whole bunch about advertising, about dealing with our customers, dealing with our suppliers, dealing with just any people that we interact with in a business sense, and even in our personal relationships. The education and experience that Empower Network provides to entrepreneurs is state of the art, because it's all on the internet, and it is also like the key principles for succeeding in any area of life, not just in online business, but in anything that you want to accomplish or achieve. They have steps and guidance that is, and mentorship that can be provided for you to be able to move in whatever direction you want to take your life. So anybody who's out there watching on our Free Energy website, go ahead and click the button below the Hangout once we end, and we'll be starting up a special info session about Project Titan. Now, I can't tell you too much about Project Titan, but it will expand on what Empower Network already does for entrepreneurs. And you'll have to fill out an NDA, which is a non-disclosure agreement, before you'll be able to join us on the Hangout, because they're going to be releasing information about the product that is kind of still top secret, because they haven't actually released this product. So before I go, I just want everybody out there to know that I'm a firm believer that in this life, absolutely anybody can be, do, and have anything they want, or we can have everything we want. I choose everything, and I hope you will too, because you can. So click the button, and Project Titan is going to give you a little bit of guidance on how you can do just that. Thank you so much for watching. Have an amazing day, and if I don't see you in the future, I'll see you out in the pasture. Bye-bye, Larry. Thank you.